Welcome back, class 10, your civics class. Continuing with chapter 2, the Union Executive. We were studying about the President of India. Today we will start off with the position and powers of the President of India. Well, the powers of the President may be broadly discussed under certain heads, Basically, the President of India, although he has an ornamental post, still he has some powers. Obviously, he's the first citizen of India. So his powers can be classified under executive power, military powers, legislative powers, financial powers, judicial powers, emergency powers, and discretionary powers. So we'll start off with the executive powers. The Constitution says that the executive power of the Union shall be vested in the President. That means the executive power of a country will be vested in the President. The President will have certain executive powers. These are: number one, head of the Union Executive. All executive orders are issued in the name of the President. All executive orders, all orders under the name of the country, basically, under the country, which are issued in the name of the President. Formation of the Council of Ministers. The Constitution lays down that the Prime Minister is to be appointed by the President, and other ministers are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. It is the duty of the Prime Minister to communicate to the President all decisions of the Council of Ministers. See, whatever decision the Council of Ministers take, these decisions are communicated to the President by the Prime Minister. When a party wins a majority in a general election, the party chooses their head to be the Prime Minister of India. So who gives the appointment letter? The President. And other ministers of the other council ministers, they are also appointed by the President. And who gives the appointment letter? The President. The appointment letter is issued from the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Power to appoint and remove high dignitaries of the state. The President appoints the Attorney General of India, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. They are very high dignitary, high posts in the Indian government. Auditor General of India, judges of the Supreme Court, these are very important from the Icse point of view. Governors and ambassadors. The President also appoints the member of the Finance Commission, the Union Public Service Commission, Chief Election Commissioner, and other members of the Election Commission. These are very important posts in the central government. So these important dignitaries, these important positions, these important people holding these positions, all of these important high dignitaries of a country are appointed by the President. Not only appointed, the President has also the power to remove the ministers, the attorney generals and governors and some other high dignitaries of the state. Fourth point under the executive power is administration of union territories. What does it mean? It means the Constitution provides that every union territory shall be administered by the President. The President acts through an administrator with such designation as the President may specify. So, administration of the union territory is under the President. Control over state governments. The union governments may give necessary directions to a state. During President's rule, the control of the union government over the state is complete. See, what happens under the President's rule? The union government takes over the state government. So, During a president's rule, the control of union government over that particular state is total. The state government has no role in that. So these are basically a president's executive power. Second comes the military power. The president is the supreme commander of the defense forces, Army, Navy, Air Force. He is the supremo of the three defense forces of India. However, the president is required to exercise this power in accordance with the laws made by the parliament. Obviously, he is not an absolute power. The president has to act according to the law of the land. The second is the president has the power as to declare war and or peace. That means the president can declare war and the president has the power to declare peace. The parliament is competent to give directions to the president as to exercise of such powers. Obviously, on one fine morning, the president wakes up and declares war. It cannot happen. The parliament decides everything, but the president announces. It is not a presidential type of government which we have in India. Whatever decision the parliament takes, the president announces it. Now comes the legislative power. The President of India is an integral part of the Union Parliament. The legislative powers of the President may be discussed under following heads. Number 1. Power to summon and prorogue Parliament and dissolve the Lok Sabha. What does it mean? It means that the President has the power to summon and prorogue the House of Parliament and dissolve the Lok Sabha. Summoning of the House and prorogue the House, these two terms we have learnt in the previous chapter. The power to summon Parliament is subject to the condition that 6 months shall not intervene between the last sitting in one session and the first sitting in the next session. That means during the first session and the second session, 6 months gap should not be exceeded. So within the 6 months, the second session can start. That also we have learnt in the previous chapter. The President has the power to dissolve the Lok Sabha, we know. The Rajya Sabha is a permanent body, we also know, not subject to dissolution. The permanent body is Rajya Sabha, it cannot be dissolved. The Lok Sabha can be dissolved under certain cases, and these cases we have discussed in the previous chapter. Second is nomination or nominating members to the houses. The President nominates 12 members to the Rajya Sabha among persons having special knowledge or practical experience in the matters of literature, science, arts, politics, social service. And President may nominate 2 members of the Anglo-Indian society or Anglo-Indian community in the Lok Sabha if that particular community, that means Anglo-Indian community, is not adequately represented in the House. 12 members in the Lok Sabha, 2 Anglo-Indian members in the 12 members in the Rajya Sabha and 2 Anglo-Indian members in the Lok Sabha. The President can nominate. Okay. Third is the right to address and send messages. What does it mean? The President addresses both houses of the Parliament assembled together at the first session after each general election. So after each general election, at the first session, the President addresses the joint session of the House. Joint session of the House means Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha together. The President may address either House or their joint sitting at any time. The President may also send messages to the either House of the Parliament. Question can be asked. Question was often asked and it can be asked in the future. Name the instances when the President addresses the joint session of the Parliament. Assent to legislation. The President may give his assent, means signature, to the bill or may refuse to assent. When a bill is passed, it has to pass from Lok Sabha, then it goes to the Rajya Sabha, then it comes back to the Lok Sabha, and from the Lok Sabha it goes to the President for his signature or assent. The president might sign it, might not sign it, might send it back for reconsideration. Then after he sends it back to the Lok Sabha, and then when again the bill is sent, he has to sign. Until and unless a bill is signed or assented by the president, the bill does not become a law. Only exception in this is if the bill is a money bill. Then this process is not followed. Now, if the bill is passed again by both the houses of the parliament with or without amendment, the president must give his assent thereto. So, after sending back without signing or without his assent, if the bill is sent back, again if that bill is passed in both the houses with or without his recommendations or changes, and again it goes back to the president has to sign. Why the president has to sign? Because the bill has been passed by both the houses and it has been passed by the majority. So the president has to sign. Since it is not a presidential type of government which we have in India. Power to promulgate ordinance. The president has the power to promulgate ordinance. What's an ordinance? Question is asked. An ordinance is a direction or command of an authoritative nature. It has the same force and effect of an act of parliament. So when the parliament is not in session, if something is needed, you cannot pass a bill, you cannot pass a law, an ordinance is passed. When the parliament is not in session. This power is subject to some limitations. The ordinance can be promulgated at the time when both the houses of the parliament is not in session. Obviously, when both the houses of the parliament is not in session, then only the ordinance can be passed. In other words, if one house is in session, there is no bar to issuing of ordinance. Second, the president must be satisfied that circumstances exist which render it necessary to take immediate action. Understood? That means the need of passing an ordinance is extremely urgent. There is an urgent need to pass an ordinance. If there is no urgent need to pass an ordinance, the ordinance will not be passed. They will wait for the parliament to be in session. If it is an urgently needed, then only the ordinance will be passed. Third important interesting point is, the ordinance should be laid before both the houses of the parliament when they reassemble. So after the session or the parliament reopens for whatever session, budget session, winter session, then that the ordinance has to be placed in front of the house. If the parliament disapproves the ordinance, it lapses. If it is not disapproved, it will automatically cease to operate at the expiration of the 6 weeks from the reassemble of the parliament. That is the reason why ordinance is regarded as a temporary measure. Why ordinance is a temporary measure? The ordinance lapses after 6 weeks after reopening of or reassembling of the parliament. So that is why it's a temporary measure. In the meantime, of course, the ordinance can be replaced by the act of parliament. The ordinance can become a law in the act of under the act of parliament. Now, seventh legislative power of the president is the president's assent to state bills. Bills passed by the state legislature, that means state government, may also be reserved by the governor for consideration of the president. Certain important bills, basically whatever bill the state government passes to transfer it to become a law, the governor signs. Central bill, the president signs. But there might be certain important bills which are passed by the state legislature. If the government thinks they are important, the government can reserve it for the consideration of the president. The President can refuse to assent to a bill reserved for his consideration. The President can also send it back with recommendations. A bill affecting the powers of the High Court must always be reserved for the consideration of the President. So, one important point or one trick over here is that any bill which affects the power of the High Court, the governor will not sign. It will be reserved for the President to sign. Otherwise, all state bills generally are signed by the government to make it a law. Under certain circumstances, if the government think that the President should intervene, it's a very important thing, it can be reserved for the President, and it all depends on the President whether he will give his assent or whether he will refuse or whether he will resend it for reconsideration. Now comes the financial powers. A money bill cannot be introduced except with recommendations of the President. Number 2, the President shall cause to be laid before the House of the Parliament the annual budget. The contingency fund is placed at the disposal of the President. The President appoints the Finance Commission after every 5 years. The Commission makes recommendations to the President on some specific financial matters, especially the distribution of proceeds to the central tax between unions and states. So, 4 financial powers are there. Number 1, money bill cannot be introduced without the recommendation of the President. President shall cause to be laid before the House of the Parliament the annual budget. The contingency fund is at the disposal of the President, so that the President, it enables the President to advance some money for the purpose of meeting of unforeseen expenditure. And very importantly, after every 5 years, the Finance Commission is appointed by the President. So the Finance Commission can make recommendations for the distribution of the proceeds collected by the central tax between the union and the state. So in today's class, we have learnt about the executive powers, we have learnt about the President's military powers, we have learnt about the President's legislative powers, and we have learnt about the President's financial powers. At the next class, we'll start off with his judicial powers. So that is all for today. Thank you.